Welcome, everybody, to PowerShell Wednesday. It is Wednesday. It is 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. in Germany right now with our guest, Christian Ritter. But you are here for PowerShell Wednesdays. Join us every single Wednesday and have a good time with us. Join us in the YouTube chat. Shout out to everybody. Oh, yes. People from all around the world are joining us now live. You can check out recordings on YouTube and check out the PowerShell podcast every single Monday. Every Monday and Wednesday, we got you covered. But today we have a very special guest. Christian Ritter is going to be talking to us about optimizing your Microsoft Graph calls, building a graph preprocessor module. Glorious. Christian, how you doing, man?
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. I'm fine. I'm pretty excited to show my working progress POC module thingy. So, yeah.
And I have a link to that in the description. But if you want to share your screen while I share that out in the chat as well,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Give
it's
me a
called
second.
Graph Preprocessor. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. I didn't came up with a better name, so if any of you have a better name, then I would be pretty happy to to get this. So, okay.
Go, my
You should
friend.
see my screen now.
Glorious.
Amazing. So, I want to talk a little bit about the Graph preprocessor. Um, the thing is, Microsoft Graph can be pretty slow. Maybe one or two of you have already experienced that. So I thought like there are some kind of rules that you can apply to your code that make things faster, like filter on the left. So if I have some kind of I retrieve some objects from Graph, for instance, and I say, okay, hey, um, after I retrieve those, I say, okay, variable name, where object, and then I ask for a specific kind of data set. This makes things slow because then you have at first to get all of the object itself from the endpoint, and then you start to filter this out. But what would be if you could filter on the endpoint instead? That would speed up things pretty quickly. And what else could speed up your Graph scripts? Maybe you get some kind of users from the endpoint, and then you only rely on 3, 4, 5 different properties, but the whole call against the Graph API will give you all of the properties which are necessary for your script. So when you just say by calling the but just by calling Microsoft Graph the endpoint, hey, please give me only this, and this property from this endpoint for each data set, and then this can speed things up as well. So, but to be honest, sometimes during the development period where you write your Graph scripts, you don't know, okay, which property I probably will need. So I just write a script and afterwards I have to fine tune all of those calls. And from my personal understanding or from my perspective, this is kind of tedious just to go on and say, hey, please refactor my whole script and do things or ask Copilot. But what would be if I just say, hey, there's a module that calls my script, that advances my script, that refactors my script, and that runs my script. And it would save me a lot of time. So basically what you can see right now on my screen is a little screenshot of this module itself. So I have here a test script, just my Graph script. And when I call this, it took about 2 seconds, which is kind of fast, but as I said, it's just a test script. Um, but with my module, it will be reduced to 370 milliseconds, which is a
Wow.
bit less, I would say. So, but how does this works under the hood? This would be my question. Hopefully it's yours as well, because I want to answer this question in a second. So I started by, okay, I had to make many use of the AST, the abstract syntax tree. So just to see in my script, okay, what could I refactor automatically? And to be honest, this whole module is in a POC state. it's a little bit wacky, so you can break it easily. There are some features which are not implemented yet, but I'm up for pull requests or for issues or for feature requests or something like that. So as Andrea said, he shared the whole project with you from my GitHub. Just don't be shy and just give me a heads up,
Can I
and
pause for just
we
one
can
second,
work
Christian?
on it. Yeah, sure.
Because can we go back to that image? Because this is
Yeah,
something
sure.
that I
Give me a
absolutely
second.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to take us under the hood, but basically, as is, I mean, you said there's still some features needed for the project, but like as is, you can take a script and just call that same script using invoke your command, invoke graph script, and then you just get to benefit from it.
Exactly. So, but to be honest, my original script would not be called. So I will guide you through the process before we step into the code of the module itself. So as I said, here is my graph script. So here in this case, it's just for demo purposes. I have many getMG user calls and group calls and so on. And the number is not made out of random how many calls I made. I will come into this in a second. But here we say, okay, from all of the groups, for instance, group 3, I just only want to have ID. For groups 4, I just want to have display name. And for users 18 variable, I say, okay, here, please select ID, display name, and surname. So as I've said, this somewhat needs to be transformed into proper calls. But have you ever heard of batch requests in fields of Microsoft Graph?
I've heard of them, and I've heard of them more and more recently. I think as people have used Graph more, they've run into that need.
Exactly. So basically, what the batch request can do is it can store up to 20 calls against the API and do this in one rush. So I just instead of making 18, 19, 20 single calls against the API, I do it once and I say, okay, this is my payload. Those are the endpoints that I want to query, and just send it over to Graph, and Graph will give me the return of the output. And so basically, as I said, this is the original script. And when we now head into this mysterious.gpp folder, you can see we have here a JSON file, a meta file, parent file, and a PS1 file, which really sounds like my original script, except as here is gpp.ps1. And if you just look into this, this is the whole refactored script. So, but what changed? As you can see, now we have some kind of params at the top. And then we have user groups, user 2, user 3, groups, and so on, and so on, and so on. So basically, all of those independent graph calls that gets redirected to any kind of variable, I just have written this as a parameter of this refactored script. And the rest of the main logic of the script lies here. So as you can see, this is basically what we have right here. So now we see, okay, that's the refactored script, but we have now a bunch of parameters that gets filled, but where's the information, where it comes from? As I said, we are talking batch requests here. And we now look at this little JSON file, because the batch request is just a JSON representation of this thing that we want to have from the endpoint. So basically, as you can see, we need the keyword requests here, and then we just have little chunks that sums up into, as I said, at max 20 calls, and we have to give this some kind of ID. We have to say, okay, what method we want to talk with the endpoint, like get, put, patch, remove, and so on. And then basically the URI, and say, okay, I want to speak with users. So, but when you now see, for instance, ID4, there we have enriched the URL with select ID. because if you remember, in my script or in the script groups 3 only I only in my main logic of my script I only make use of ID, and from groups 4 is only display name. So if we head back to JSON, we should somewhere see or don't see, but why we don't see it? Maybe, as I said, it's a POC and it's work in progress. Maybe I broke a thing or two, but you should see, and it did work before, but I don't know why it's now not working anymore. You also should see select display name for the groups 4, and for user 18, you only should see groups select and then display name, username, whatever I selected. So unfortunately, demo gods are not with me today. You won't see it now, but basically it worked before. And then we have some kind of meter file. And in this meter file, we have some kind of the JSON path, the parent path, the PS1 path from the GPP files, the graph preprocessor the GPP comes from. When it was created, what was the file hash of the original script file? Because how should my script know that he doesn't need to pre-process the whole script? Basically, I say, okay, when I start the command invoke graph script, I just say, hey, please check the old file hash of the targeted script, and if this has changed somehow, the file hash, then please do the pre-processing again. This takes a minute or two, and afterwards it checks, and if it doesn't change, then it will just call directly and immediately. But the thing is, as you have seen in the so if you have seen in the batch request, we just have here some kind of ID, um, just incrementing until 20, so 0 to 19. We have to make the translation or the lookup table. Let me get it this way: from which um, variable we had translate to which ID in the graph call itself, because the batch call itself. Because for the batch call, as an indicator, I only have the ID, which returns back. This is now a number, but could be also a name. The reason why I have to make use of a lookup table, for instance, is because imagine if you reuse variable names. So then would be the whole translation broken. Therefore, I decided to go with Ray just to make use of numbers instead of the actual variable name, just to avoid breaking the return code. But what is missing right now for this? As I said, the issue why it's broken. But what is also missing is the thing about the where object. So, for instance, if I go in my script and would say, hey, here some hard users 9. And now I would say, okay, here I only need where object display name. For instance, like this. Then I would expect that the URI would enrich the URI with a filter just for check if the display name starts with an A, and then this would would be recreated by basically just this, because the endpoint will handle this. But speaking in terms of Microsoft Graph, the filtering itself on the endpoint is not a piece of cake. So this can be sometimes gets a little confusing. You have to make sure that you use the right search terms, like I said, start with, end with. For instance, many other things you can do for the filtering. There's a whole Microsoft Learn article about it, which basically is endless. Not endless at all, but you have many options, and sometimes for going deeper into objects to retrieve something or filter to this, then you have to say, okay, I need some kind of consistency level, eventual, just to get all of properties, sub-properties. This should also apply for select object, or sometimes when you say, okay, I need to start with and as a filter and consistency level, then you have to say, okay, I need also count is true inside of the URI, which confused me. I've tried to understand why this is the case. So if anyone of the audience is aware of why this is the case, please let me know, because I had a very hard time to figure this out, why this is the case, and I missed badly. So, but just as said, there is some kind of potential. Also, what is missing is, Andrew, have you heard of pagination?
I have. It's a pain.
It's a pain, exactly. So when I just call the batch request endpoint and say, hey, please um, give me back the items, and I say, okay, the count is about so basically about pagination. In Microsoft Graph, you can bump up the default result page size to 999. Some endpoints only deliver by default 100 items. It was a long time for the user endpoint in Microsoft Graph. They bumped it up to 1000 because most of the times when you work with large customer sets or your own company, you probably have more than 100 users there. But there are some endpoints which only give you back 100 items. So what is also performance increasement would be just to bump up the default page size to 999. So if it's less than 999, who cares? Because then you just get 300, 200, whatever items back, but the page size is bumped up. So, but what is the case if we exceed this number? Mm, When I do a call with the URI, like you can see in the batch request, the return object, if the pagination size, the item size would exceed those 999 objects. Sorry, I just saw the comment. So, but if it's just exceed this number, then I just have to check of inside of the response, because in the response there is a OData next link URI, which basically does on the hood a skip token, so it can exactly say, okay, which of those elements from this endpoint I should skip to get the next 999 items and so on. And then I can just make while loop until the OData next link property isn't filled anymore. Then I know, hey, I'm all good and everything is set up, and I retrieved all of the objects when, for instance, I say get mg user dash all. So, which is good, but it's not implemented yet. So basically, if there is some kind of missing items because I wanted to have more than 999, then I have to then it won't retrieve those elements right now for this module. So this is an open issue which is not in GitHub right now. It's only in my head. But as I spoken out loud, I just have to update my issues just to fix this. So this could be an easy fix. But on the other hand, what should we do? Have you ever heard of throttling, Andrew?
Sorting?
Throttling.
Oh, throttling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what could happen is if an endpoint is quite busy, you can get throttled. So therefore, we have to check because each of those elements, like ID 18, for instance, has its own return code. And if the endpoint is busy and you get throttled, then it could be take up to, they say how long you have to wait to do the call again. And you have to be responsive for that because it can happen. And to be honest, it's not written yet, but it's also something I have in my book of technical debt that I have to do. But yeah, this is also a thing that you have to consider because there can be sometimes situations where thank you, Sim, can be somewhat difficult. So, but as I've said, it's just in a work of progress. It's in a POC state. So, but let us instead of talking what isn't working, let's discuss what is working and see how it works. So, but let me check for short. I don't know why, but here it was working. As you can see for ID 18, this was an old file where I tested this. So basically, just to showcase what it should look like is select ID, display name and surname for those three properties that I made use of inside of my script. And the filter could be look like this. But as I said, the whole filter part is not really implemented yet. There are some kind of issues that need to get fixed. But yeah, but this this could like look like this. So
I have a question.
yeah, sure,
Because
always.
a lot of people might be newer to APIs, and what you're talking about
Yeah.
now are going to be the things that people struggle to understand to begin with. So, like, I think the first thing that you're talking about addressing is page
Mhm.
size and pages in general. So, I guess the
Yeah,
page size is how much you get back in a request, like each page you
exactly.
get back. So, you want more for that for sure. But that's the kind of thing as like you're making API calls, I've found you're going to have to account for it really quick if you're actually trying to use an API, because if you have any sufficiently sized environment, you're going to need more than one API call to get whatever you're looking for,
Mhm.
right? So
Exactly. So
pages,
I have yeah. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to showcase another demo that I had given to the PowerShell user group Rhein-Neckar last year, because there I demonstrated what I now try to do with this module automatically, how you can do this by hand or manually. Give me just a second, Andrew,
Yeah,
because then I could spin this up real quick. So where are my repositories? There we go. Where is my GitHub repository there? Where is my sessions? There.
I have a
Then we
confession
have
while you do
the
that that I'll tell everybody.
yeah, sure.
So when it comes to throttling and projects, I've never done
Yeah.
it efficiently. I've always just added a big pause, whatever. It's just going to take longer. I'm not going to figure out all that stuff.
For
That's
Microsoft
my
Craft,
guilty.
there's a retry property which you could make use just to say, okay, I just need to wait until the endpoint said, okay, I should be good to go in about 5 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. So basically, this would also impact your script. But the chances to get throttled by make use of batch requests is way lower than just call the endpoint 20, 40, 80, 90, whatever times. Um, so
And that's what the JSON is. Is
Rhein-Neckar,
that
there we
is
go.
that your batch request basically?
Exactly, exactly. And new batch request file, invoke batch request. So we could
Yeah,
check for a
that'll create
second.
it.
So I just get the whole content of the path for the JSON file here. And then I need to convert it from JSON. And then need to convert it back again to JSON, which is makes obviously not that much sense, but it was needed. Um, and then basically you just say, okay, I need to invoke a mgcraft request, and I know Ben will hate me for this because I just only rely on invoke mgcraft request from the Microsoft.craft module. Just to make the calls because I don't wanted to have all the struggle with the authentication and the refresh token. So basically, invoke mgcraft request this command just makes things for me, and I don't have to take care of it for the
Okay.
refresh token, for instance. So, but I said I just make a method for the post, and where I want to post to my payload, I just want to post it to craft.microsoft.com v102 uh, v1.0, and then I just call batch here. And inside of batch, I just say, okay, here's my body, and my body or the payload is basically the representation of the JSON file. And I just have to say, okay, the content type is application JSON, and if an error occurs, please stop. And if the result is not 200, which means it was okay, then I just need to know why I do this 2 times here. That's crazy because it's not necessarily needed. But if it occurs, then just give me please the response status code. And as I said, due to throttling, which is I have a really hard time to remember numbers. 429 could be return code for throttling. If anyone knows better, just post in the chat. And if this would be the case, 429.
I think it
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was correct. Amazing. And if it was just 429, then I should, sorry, then I should make the call again after the time of period I have to wait. But it's obviously missing, but I'm aware that this is missing. So yeah, this would be the case. So I would go with a switch statement for later development purposes. And also, I know there's no kind of comments and also no synopsis and yeah, many things that are currently missing. Um,
Oh, you're reading it. Nice.
I just was reading the
Forgot you can
comment. Yeah,
see the screen.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, as I said, okay. So this is how we could write to the batch endpoint and just post our payload, and then will get processed, and then I have to get the feedback, as here are the results, and then I have to say, okay, for each result, what is the what are the elements, assign them to a variable, and do basically the call about the refactored graph script. But as I said, pagination, we spoke about that. So let me just spin up a new VS Code instance. Give me a second. Open
I
VS
have
Code.
1 second while that happens.
Yeah,
I have one
yeah,
question.
sure.
Okay, so we looked at so batching requests together, getting a ton together. What's the benefit of that? Is it more performant? Are you able to make bigger requests? Like, why would we even consider that?
Because it's faster. Like I said, you don't have to call the endpoint multiple times. You call it only once, and let the endpoint figure out what it should do with all of your requests. And just a little caution warning: not all endpoints are batch requests ready. So some of those you can't point to with a batch request. There's also a thing about the what I have to do agenda is to figure out which endpoints aren't supported by batch requests. Just in case if yours or my script uses so just one of those endpoints, I just have to do those calls manually. Or basically not in a batch request because we don't do anything manually here. So, okay, but as I said, I'm prepared now and I've brought something. So for instance, when I say get MG user all, I get all of the MG users. Cool, isn't it? So the default pagination size it was for users 100, now it's 1000. So maybe another endpoint would be better, but the basic result would be was 100. So therefore, I've written a little script or function called get msgraph all objects. And then I say, okay, I want to have a chunk size or items on one page. I could call them as well. And the default value, I set it to 999. And I also include a little beta switch because for Microsoft Graph, you have a version 1 and a beta endpoint. And I hear many voices that say, hey, we can't use the beta endpoint in production because it's beta. But to be honest, many properties that are up and running and living in the portal, for instance, for Mentor ID, have some kind of properties that you can't retrieve while using version 1. You have to make use of the beta endpoint for this. So basically, as I said, okay, there are two different modules running for Microsoft Graph. One is Microsoft.graph and one is Microsoft.graph.beta. But with my doing here, I don't even make use of the beta endpoint because what I do is I just can say, hey, graph.microsoft.com / and then beta or v1.0 just to decide which endpoint I want to ask for those properties. So in scenarios where I'm at the customer side, most of the elements I retrieve from version 1.0. But in case I need some properties that are only available in beta, I just make use of the Microsoft.graph module and just point to the beta endpoint. But I'm stepping away from the initial question. We wanted to see, okay, how does the graph pagination works under the hood, or how I can make better calls against it. As you can see here, I just basically have a return and I say, okay, invoke mggraph request. I have to get the URI, what I wanted to call, and then I get an output type like PS object. And then I iterate through all of those values and add them to a collection, like here, generic list. And now I have to check if the return contains a property called add_odata.nextLink. And if this is the case and it's not null, then I just have to do the same call that I did before, but now the URI is the OData next link. And then I just fill the collection again and just basically do the call again and again until the OData next link isn't filled anymore. And after this, I can return the collection and get the get all those elements. And that's basically how you can make pagination work by manually calling the different endpoints by the URL instead of invoke mg user or mg manage device or something like this. So basically you can just go by the URI. So, but the question is how I know for my script that get mg user, for instance, sorry, for get mg user, for instance, is indeed the user's endpoint. Because, hey, I don't know it's by heart, but maybe there is a command that could help me here. So in Microsoft.graph.authentication module, which comes along if you install Microsoft.graph, there's a neat command called findmggraph command. So when I say findmggraph command, And then I can say, hey, please get mg group. And as you can see here, just for get mg group, I get the array. And I can call it with the group ID or basically with the groups. And I can do the same thing for get mg user. What is also cool, Andrew, because I know you will ask me this in a second, this also comes in handy because as you can see here, we have a permission property. And the permissions property, just says, hey, which permission would allow me to run this command successfully? Because speaking of authentication, hey, maybe my app registration just need to have one of those um, permission scopes to work properly. But as you can see, for get mg user, I can make use of user read basic all. But as you can see here for the method get, do I really need a read write or basically a read permission?
Principal
Scope.
least privilege. Yeah, let's go for the minimum, please.
Exactly. So therefore, I've written another module which helps you because by make use of the AST, it will just check all of your craft commands that you have in your script and collects all of the permissions here for each command and generate a subset of permission scopes with some kind of least privilege attempt just to figure out, okay, what's the bare minimum that my app registration and my tenant needs to run my script properly. So I don't have to check after I've written my script what I have to grant my app registration, which permissions I need to grant. And yeah, it's another cool thing. You also can find this on my GitHub. But what I wanted to showcase here is with some kind of just easy commands, a little bit of AST magic, you can make your administrator life so much easier. Because, like I said, with my permission script, I don't care about what I could make use of permissions. I just run my script and see, okay, this is the bare minimum subset of permissions that I need to have, and then I can create my app registration for that. The next level would be after running this, please create my app registration. So this is also on my long list of things I really need to do. But yeah.
Yeah, those
So
permissions are very important to have locked in. Otherwise,
yeah.
you're not going to be able to actually do anything.
hmm Exactly, but I just want to showcase what I do here. You can make use of it in various ways. So if you aren't already aware of the abstract syntax tree, I really can say try to figure things out that don't work right now as you expect it to work, and just try to understand how the whole scripts, how all of your script work under the hood, just to go to the next step. And like I said, for instance, here, just collect all of your craft scripts. This is basically craft commands. This is basically what I do here in my module and the master of transitions. So just go by invoke craft script, just to understand what happens here. As were able to see, I just point to the path. And I can say, okay, even if this is already pre-processed, please pre-process anyhow. Then I just test if I'm ready to go just to fire my refactored script, or if I need to pre-process this one more time. And if this is not ready to execute, then please invoke the pre-processing, also pointing to my original file. After pre-processing is done, I collect the meta file content, which is the file hash, the file for the JSON, for the params, for the PS1. And then I create a new splat with the batch result that I got back from the batch endpoint call, and also my parameter table path. And then I have the splat for my script just to call the refactored script, as you can see here down below. So just let us head to invoke batch request we already saw. Just let us head to new splat command. And here I just import the parent table path, which looked like this. So this was the translation from the ID from the batch request to the variable names, which are the parameters in the refactored script. It's now I skipped, which is not what I wanted to do. So okay. And then now I just create a calling splat with the variable name as a key. And the value is basically from the batch result responses. And there I just say, okay, hey, where the object ID matches up the parent object ID from the lookup. And there I need the body and therefore the value just to fill the values for the of the calling for the refactored script as a parameter or parameter set. Not parameter set, as a parameter or parameters. Yeah, and this is basically what the invoke graph script does. Here, yeah, I retrieve this plot and I just give it to the refactored script. But I have said, okay, there is some kind of pre-processing which needs to happen beforehand, right? And this is basically what's happened here. For the pre-processing, I get the file, I get the parent directory. From the file itself, I create a new folder, .gpp. I create the meta file path, the JSON file, the parent file, and the refactored script file. File hash file name created when, and all the stuff. And I just export the meta file info as a CSV, so I just have something to rely on. And with the command get graph commands, like here, from our original Microsoft Graph script, I collect all of those graph commands. So if we go to get graph commands, and now we come to the good part. Many use of the AST. So basically, I just pass the input from the script block. The script block is the content of the file itself that we need to refactor, and then we just have the then we just get the AST object, and then we can ask the AST many things. So, for instance, if I want to have all the assignments, like I said, give me all of the variables which gets assigned by any kind of command. So I just say, okay, for the AST, please find all, and then I can define a predicate and say, okay, where everything is of kind system management automation language assignment statement AST. And then I just have all those assignments. And now from all of the assignments, I need to get the commands. So for all of the assignments, I just ask, hey, where object? So RHS, any idea what RHS could mean?
Right-hand sign.
Exactly. So the right-hand side is basically the command which assigns to the variable itself. So I say for all of those assignments that I have in my script, like dollar variable name equals, give me the right hand side. And also where the right hand side is some kind of comment expression AST, comment AST, or pipeline AST, and the pipeline elements count to 0, because sometimes I just need to check, okay, where I've made reuse of the variable and so on. Oh, maybe I also have just read my command right hand side. Ha. Okay. And then I just need, now I have all the variables and all the commands, which are somewhat filling those variables that we have collected. But how to determine that those are actually graph scripts, mm, graph commands? No, basically we say, okay, for each command that we have collected, where object, and get command named where the name is basically so what we are doing here, we do some kind of splitting, because in PowerShell when we have a command, we have a white space and then we have some kind of parameters, pipe or something like that. But we say okay, for the right hand side, just split sorry, just split after the first appearance of a white space. So therefore we can say, okay, the command should be now ended, and the rest I don't care right now anymore. And then I say, okay, hey, please check the source of this command. And when it's a command and has a source, it should like Microsoft.graph, and then we can say dot whatever. So basically I can do here a dot. And then when we say Microsoft.graph.users, Microsoft.graph.groups, manage device, whatever. So basically now we can see, now we retrieve all the Microsoft Graph commands. And then I basically do a, for each of those PS custom object, where I say, okay, what was the variable name, what was the line number, what was the command, what is the command name, what is the parameters of this. So for parameters, for instance, I have another command lying in my module just to get the parameters info for each of those commands, and which method, as we have seen already in the terminal here. Here with find mdgraph command, I just get the methods. And this is what I do here. And the first method that appears, sorry. As you can see here, while doing find mdgraph command for get md user groups, I get 2 of those. Because I can ask the endpoint for groups with an ID or without, and I should retrieve all of the groups. And if I want to know a certain thing about a specific group, I can provide the group ID to get this information. So, but I would get two objects as a result for find mdgraph command. So I basically go with the first one. For the method here, so select first here. Exactly. DRI is then I have a command called get filter URI, where I post any parameters in the command, and you use properties, because that's the thing. I need to know which properties are used for which variable on which file. And the use filter ports is the thing which is totally broken. Use filters would check for where object and then transform it so we can fill the URL. So we can have a look at the get filled URI command. So as I said, here we need the parameters, the comment name, the use properties, the use filters, and then I need to check if it's an ID parameter, because as you have maybe seen, when I say here I can ask for groups with a specific ID, or I can ask for groups name would get all. So I just need to make sure that which is the case. So if it's some kind of is an ID parameter, then which URI as a base I have to choose from, because there are some kind of endpoints which want to have two IDs, for instance. So I just have to make sure what is the case. So when I get mg user whitespace dash ID, and it will provide an ID, then I need to call the URI with the ID and just have to replace this group ID here with the ID that was provided as a parameter. So for the command get param, where is it? Command parameter info. I also check if there's some kind of an ID or not an ID, and if it's some kind of switch statement like dash all and all those funny things. So as you maybe can see, because I don't want to step really too deep into this, but what I want to express is there are many things that you have to consider while making such a thing work, because things can go downhill pretty easily. Therefore, this is a lot of work. But it's kind of fun. I enjoy this kind of thing, and I would be really happy if one or two folks, or many folks, would join me on this ride, just to make this an alternative solution, just to speed things up, because speed is fun.
Yeah, I heard from somebody in the chat that they're going to be reaching out to you, Morten Christensen, Morten Minster. I think I talked to you about him at PSConf.eu, but he's also a lover of batch commands and graphs, so might be a good excuse for you all to collaborate.
Yeah. And what I wanted to say as well, sorry, because I probably haven't told it yet. So, as I said, what happens if you have 21 or more craft calls? Because one batch request only can have 20. Then I have to spin up another one. And then what we can make is parallelism. Because nothing prevents me from just spin up a thread, run space pool, and just do them at the same time, or nearly the same time. And then it would also decrease the execution time while doing it in parallel.
Smart. You are the performance guy.
Mm. I've attended for PowerShell conference the Speed Up the Code challenge, and I saw there were many people way smarter than me. So I enjoy to make things faster and take approach which is not pretty obviously in the first place, and just tweak things around and have some fun there. But there are many people that are way better in increasing performance, and I'm all in for any kind of suggestions or something. So, but I've spoken now nearly about 54 minutes. I don't know how long this call will be, but maybe there are some questions from the audience, Andrew. So I also do
Yes.
moderation.
Yes, let's let the questions roll in. I do want to highlight something that has been really cool for me to see. And I think that there's some people out there who are maybe using Graph and have heard of the AST and are diving deep. And I think for those
Yeah.
who aren't at the point where they're really writing scripts and stuff, one thing that you can really take away from this is once you know those more intermediate and advanced skills and are able to write scripts in the way that Christian has, you are able to approach problem solving from a way more capable angle. Because, you know, dealing with things like pagination, if you're not comfortable scripting or looping or things like that, that can be a big roadblock. But if you can push through and get those skills, you'll be able to do the same kind of cool stuff that Christian is working on here, which is, I imagine, fun at points for you.
Yeah, thank you. So what I've said is about the pagination. I mean, the Microsoft.Graph module and also Microsoft.Entra module can give you those this whole pagination thing automatically. If you say dash all, then those things happen on the background, but they are not kind of fast. That's the reason why I wanted to show um, this little page here one more time. So for get mg user all, and when I now say I bump up the page size to 999, things are faster.
Yeah.
And if I say get mg user dash all, and then say, okay, what I want to select from this ID and display name, for instance, it makes things faster. And if I combine those things with select and also page size and all, I don't have to take care of the pagination. Um, I just select what I need to select and I bump up the page size, which is all cool and all fun, and it works. But as I said, I don't want to take care of it. I just don't want to always think of the page size or about which properties I have selected. That's the reason why I came up with the sorry. That's the reason why I came up with the whole um,
Preprocessor
graph
project.
reprocessor module. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, it's pretty awesome, and it's smart of you to find yourself running into writing the same kind of BS boilerplate code to make things efficient. Just write a tool that does it for you. But we do have a couple questions here.
Cool.
Isn't there a max batch size? Is that 20?
So max items in a batch request itself are 20 items. Yes. So the Microsoft Learn platform has a lot of cool information how to make things about Microsoft Graph faster, and they really guide you through all of those little informations that I hopefully have given to you correctly. But just in case to make sure, I also would give you the links to the learner articles, which helped me a lot, just to put it into the show notes for the upload file entry. Maybe not tonight, but probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
As I said, we have 9 p.m. here right now. So, but yeah.
Bedtime. A couple more questions though, if I could, while you're here. How do you
Yeah,
handle a
sure.
throttle within a batch request?
So as I said, all of those, for instance, here, I get response status codes for each um, response in here. So which means I just have to check which response code I've got. And if I got not 200, then something is off. And I just have to take care like throttling 429. And if it's the case, then I have to check the response for the throttle delay time and just have to make some way of waiting and until I can do the next call. So basically what would be the next step is of this whole POC is basically have some kind of um, waterfall down. Make this any kind of sense when I say it like that? So basically I do all of those calls, let it be 20, and 5 of them have some kind of issues throttling, for instance. Then I just need those 5, make a new JSON file out of it, make the recall after the time is done for the delay, for the waiting delay. Also the same thing for pagination, check for each result. If in the response is some kind of OData next link, collect them, make a new batch call, and so you just go down the road until you have all of the information that you need, and everything is in the state of 200. So what the script so for instance, if any of those numbers is not at 200, then the refactor script won't get called until it's all 200 or some certain time limitation is broken, was broken, and then just cancel the whole job. So this is what the thing needs as an improvement.
Perfecto. All right. I think we're good on questions. Christian Ritter, thank you so much for joining us. Check out his talks on YouTube for, I think, from PowerShell Summit this year on speeding things up last year. There's a whole legacy. There's a lot more of Christian to discover out there. But Christian, people enjoyed what they heard today. They want to connect with you. Where can we find you?
So basically, you can find me on LinkedIn as Christian Ritter. You can check Blue Sky and Mastodon, I think, for HC Ritter. Or what you also could do is, I drop this in this chat if you like. It's my link tree, because there I have all of my social media handles and stuff, which makes things in terms of getting in contact with me kind of easy.
I see
Because there
it.
you have everything.
Link tree, got it. I will post that in the comments. But thank you for joining us, my friend, and thank you everybody out there
Thank you
for
for having
tapping
me.
into PowerShell Wednesday. Yes, sir. The post chat is going to
Always.
happen in the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ. Check us out in the chit chat channel. We'll be hanging out there for the next little bit. Christian might have to run home. He's got kids. He's got sleep. He's got a job. He's got a legacy in front of him. And it's really cool to see what you've built and grown over the past couple of years, Christian, man. You are a legend, my friend. And have a great day, everybody.
It was a pleasure for me. You too. I will join also the chat if you like, but in about 5 to 10 minutes due to bio break.
Perfect. All right. Cheers, everybody. See you there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.